How to build a multi-product fintech platform fast. Welcome to Breaking Down Barriers, where we hear from the builders, makers, and optimizers in the Middle East. Today we have Robin, current CPO for Sarwa. Today's guest went from McKinsey to CPO in just a few years, helped to scale one of the Middle East's most ambitious fintechs, Sarwa, into a multi-product wealth platform. He's going to join us today to talk about scaling, building trust with first-time investors, and what it really takes to lead a fintech product in the Middle East. And also, you drove growth to over 15 billion AED in trading volume, achieving profitability pretty fast. And obviously, ex-McKinsey consultant with a deep blend of strategy and execution. So if we start from, you went from McKinsey to CPO in just a few years, like what drew you to Sarwa, and how did you make that leap from strategy to execution?
Perfect. First, thanks a lot for having me. Big fan of what you've been doing in the region. So for me, my first actually start with Sarwa started actually as an investor. So I was still at McKinsey at the time, and I met their head of advisory, and they were raising a bridge round. I believe it was still pre-product or kind of in still beta testing. And when he told me what they were building at Sarwa, I felt that there was a need in the market because I could feel this pain as a resident of the UAE. I wanted those easy to invest platform that I was seeing in other geographies. So I met the CEO and I ended up kind of participating in part of their bridge round of investing. And that was kind of my first interaction with Sarwa. After that, I became a customer of Sarwa when the product became more available to the public. And then I finally joined Sarwa kind of as their product lead and leading their product team. And for the switch regarding kind of strategy to execution, I think when I joined the company, it was still kind of at the early stage. We were like less than 20 employees. And you quickly realize that to add value to the company, it's not about kind of thinking and creating complex strategies. It's really about executing and showing that you can get things done fast and quickly. So you quickly adapt as you want to bring value to kind of this new mindset.
And for you, like you said, so you were passionate about obviously being able to shape the product from day one, but having that deep-rooted connection already to Sarwa and the industry?
Yeah, so exactly. I really understood the pain point that we were trying to solve and the need for it in the region. The fact that it was kind of underdeveloped, a lot of the investment at the time was a lot still real estate and not less into the stock market. So I really related to the customers that we were trying to help in the region, and I felt that there was a need. So it was a very easy switch for me and kind of was passionate about the mission we were trying to accomplish.
Nice. And Sarwa started as a robo-advisor. So what were the biggest challenge then in expanding into a multi-product platform, trading stocks, crypto, ETFs, options, etc.?
Yeah, so when I joined the first year of Sarwa, I was really focused on the robo-advisory, so kind of helping manage our customers into diversified portfolio of ETFs. We quickly realized that we wanted to expand into a brokerage platform as well. And with that comes a few challenges, especially when it's still at the earlier stage of a company at the time. I would say they're going to three kind of main challenges. One, in terms of the product, when you expand into a new product, you're kind of competing with more players that are more specialized in each product that you offer. And you need to manage your limited resources to make sure that each product as a standalone is competitive and up to the standards that the customer expects. So while there is a benefit into having multiple products in one platform and being kind of a one-stop shop, you still need to make sure that each one of your products is competitive alone with the other offerings that are more specialized in the region. So having to manage that with the resources available is one thing that you need to make sure you're pushing on both at the same time. Also, like the brokerage product has more different use cases than what we were offering at the time as the robo. There's more different user persona that have different expectation when it comes to kind of people who like to day trade, people who like to hold their position long term, and you need to kind of adjust for more use cases there. And the second challenge is on the technical front. So the robo-advisor product is a bit more passive in a way where the customer fund their account, then we invest it on their behalf. There's not that much load that comes into the platform. So knowing that when you move from the robo-advisory product to the brokerage product, there are some technical implementations you need to be aware of when working with the engineering team that you need to solve to manage kind of increase of load to the platform and make sure that you can still offer a very good customer experience. The third goes around branding. So for a few years before we did the switch, we were purely kind of pushing the concept of Sarwa as a robo-advisor. That's kind of the right philosophy to investing. And while we still believe that that's the right philosophy to invest, we wanted to make sure that we offer the range of products customers were asking, but we needed to kind of communicate this switch in brand and not have the customer and the public think Sarwa is purely a wealth manager and a robo-advisor, but more of a one-stop shop investing where customers could do kind of whatever they want.
That was a lot in a short space of time as well. And did that all come from that passion of yours? Like if you moved into the other aspect as well, that like did it come down to user research, talking to the customer regularly? Like how did you get onto like actually execution of this as well?
So making the decision of going into that, I think it's a pretty interesting one because it came actually from a lot of different angles. So one of the things was the customer, as you mentioned. So we were getting a lot of feedback from customer. Are you planning to launch this? I would love to do this, etc. So those are customers which were already using the robo-advisor who wanted to do both. And we knew that some of them were actually doing both with other players that were existing. So we knew that there was a customer demand for it. But on the other side, also in terms of kind of the global market, there was a big trend towards brokerage versus kind of robo-advisor and managed portfolio. So globally, things were taking off with Robinhood kind of expanding, while robo-advisories were a bit more lagging behind, I would say, in terms of general hotness in the market. And so kind of mixing those two together, we're like, okay, we're still helping our customers. We're offering another product that's in demand that we feel there's a need for it. And we're going into a bigger addressable market as a business was kind of the way to go.
Nice. What actually helped you to scale so quickly and efficiently? And what are the aspects then of that slowed you down as well?
Yeah, great question. So basically, I think when we decided to do this expansion, the things that really helped us scale quickly on that step and on further steps, I would say, one is really scope hammering into minimum viable products or like MLPs and to know what you want to launch. So when we first launched Trade, we actually launched it, I would say, without the ability for a customer to transfer money from their robo-advisor product to their Trade product, without watch list, without news. So we kind of removed a lot of the things that you could easily argue are needed for a launch and are there, but they're not really needed. And this was able to kind of accelerate our launch, let's say from around 9 months to 6 months, and then add those features later. Well, when we launched, obviously there was some customer feedback that were around, okay, we want this. We knew we had already started them in the pipeline and we were working towards launching them. So kind of always trying to reduce as much as possible the scope of a product to get to the launch as quickly as possible and then build on that, I think is very important. I would say that the customer expectation is increasingly increasing and kind of those level of MVPs or MLPs is increasing as their demand is there. But it's also important to see where you stand and really where can you land, where you feel comfortable that this is a product that can still compete in the market and address the majority of use cases, while balancing that out with the time element to it. So I would say that's one key element. The second is really selecting the right partners. So when you select the right partners to power kind of your infrastructures and that have the right growth mindset in their roadmap as well, you can really grow with them as they grow. Integrating like a different product with an existing partner is much more efficient than going and having to find a different partner and integrating with them every time you need to launch a new product. So I would say selecting the right partners that have kind of this growth mindset and ambition becomes very valuable. And that's what has helped us as well to grow from Trade to then launching crypto to then launching options, which we've done with kind of the similar partner across.
Are there any other things to look for then when you talk about, obviously it's fundamental in choosing the right partner and having that growth mindset, but are there any other aspects for businesses to look for to make sure it is the right partner for them?
I think you need to challenge like who they are, what's their ambition, and what part of their journey they're in. Like sometimes you have a tendency to go towards more established players that have been in the market longer, but you also know that those players are actually a bit slower to grow and innovate. So you want to make sure that they have the same kind of mindset and ambition that you have from the get-go to keep on innovating, and that they have the right team to keep keep doing that across time.
And how do you simplify then complex products like wealthtech and the broader user adoption?
That's an interesting one. And I think the way we do it at Sarwa is basically investing. There's different level of complexity of products at the end of the day, right? There's some products which are simple and some products which are more complicated. Across all products, what we try to do is to try to keep the financial jargon as simple as possible, the product as transparent as possible. But one of the benefits that we have, if you take investing and what Sarwa has to offer, the most basic type of investing, if we can even call it investing, is saving, right? So saving, you deposit money into your account, you get a guaranteed interest rate that's there, you cannot lose money, it's coming every single month. It's kind of the easiest way to start your investing or saving journey. The second step of the products that we have is kind of the managed portfolios. So there, as a customer, you only need to fund your account, and then Sarwa manages it for you in diversified portfolios. But here already you're more in the investing stage. So as a customer, you need to know that you can lose money, right? It's not like save where you won't lose money. You can lose money. The market can go up or down. And you need to emotionally be aware of what to do in those states to not panic and what to do. So, but here it's some kind of a relatively simple product from the customer. If you take to the third product, which is trade, now you need to select what you want to buy. You need to know, okay, I want to buy this stock. Why do I want to buy this stock? How volatile is this stock? What is the potential risk and reward that I can have? And then if you go to the fourth, is kind of options, which is a derivative, even more complicated. So kind of having this range of product helps us have any customer come at any entry point that they're comfortable with to start their investing journey, and then grow there towards a more advanced product if they wish to grow. It's also very possible that some people just want to stay in the passive and then don't want to go into a more active or don't want to trade options. When having kind of this range of product where different new investors and beginners can enter to is very useful.
And on that then, so how do you design for the people who are financially curious but not yet confident as well?
I think it comes to design and education in that front. So when it comes to design, again, when I joined Sarwa and ever since I've been at Sarwa, we often do kind of customer feedback survey. There are three things that comes most often as what Sarwa does well is simple, transparent, and trust. So we try to keep these in our design all the time. And the way we do it is, again, really trying to simplify the jargon as much as possible. There's no point in using it. Trying to put as much info, tooltip, and explanation when needed so that customer can learn what certain terms mean. And displaying things clearly and transparently, not having any hidden fees, not having anything that's kind of hidden in the background. We pair that with a lot of webinars that our advisors do, a lot of events, a lot of educational content that we push to our customers as well through different means, email, blogs, and in-person events as well.
And when it comes to the product strategy and roadmap, how has your product strategy evolved with all the different changing market conditions, the funding environment, customer behavior?
Yeah, great question. I touched upon it when we decided to expand into kind of trade, right? I think at Sarwa, in a short amount of time, we kind of did different business objective prioritization that in general in the past would take longer. So in the past, I think it was finding product market fit, growing, expanding, monetizing, right? That's kind of the playbook of evolving into a product as a business. At Sarwa, we kind of found the product market fit earlier on for the robo product, but we quickly went into expanding our addressable market and going into trade because of, again, the size and the relative excitement globally that was for the brokerage product versus the robo-advisor product. So that was kind of how we adapted first, and we went from, PMF, we were still growing both, but we had to expand our market early on. Then we went obviously in growth mode, but we quickly also had to switch into monetization mode. So when obviously interest rates went up, the access to funds and the general ecosystem of the startup was much more focused now on reaching profitability and monetization. So we had to early go towards that and try to reach profitability. So this is where kind of on a strategy standpoint and on a product, you start focusing on, what are products that you can launch that can have a good monetization, that can grow your revenues to reach profitability. And we've reached now profitability since February of last year. and then you go back into kind of the growth mode and just really pushing on the growth mindset. So navigating those different environment of the VC landscape, the fundraising landscape, and the market environments, switching the business objective goes directly into impacting your roadmap and the features you need to kind of work on.
You made all that sound so seamless. There must have been some pain points in there in doing so.
Yeah, there's definitely been pain points. I think kind of switching the roadmap and the prioritization is definitely something that's always challenging. But when you have kind of a good mindset of your teams and your employees, and you communicate clearly the rationale behind those switches and why you're needing to change those priorities, I think in general, the people are very then eager to go and drive and solve kind of the challenges that the business has. But managing different products early on, having all of those products you need to push together, focusing on monetization, switching from growth, and so on in a more resource-restrained environment than what it was probably in the past was definitely something to adapt to.
Sounds like you've got the right people on the bus as well within the team and the right culture. So is there something in that in terms of laying those foundations, and maybe any advice you'd have for other product leaders or founders that's looking to build and scale their team, whether that's from scratch or at a later stage, to get that dynamic right as well? Because you spoke a lot about even just the way that you obviously communicate with the team as well, and ensuring that they understand the rationale, which some companies don't do that. They just pivot without real clear direction.
Definitely. I think at Sarwa, one thing that we're very proud of is actually our employee retention. We've got amazing retention, and that kind of helps you do that. And I think to build the right team, it comes from all aspects of the company. And what we ever do with our customers, we also do it with our employees around building transparency through the company, making sure they're aware of the rationales behind things. We also have kind of a work remote culture that allows employees to feel that they're flexible in their areas. And we get people who are actually also driven by the product and by the mission, so who also want to make sure that the vision of the company is a success.
And on the remote first culture then, there was a lot of talk about before GPT and AI came along, and it was all about remote work, on-site, off-site, whatever it might be. How do you reckon you've got that right as a business? Because a lot of companies haven't, and they're still talking about it, and they still haven't found their way or what is the right combination. How do you think that you've got it right at Sarwa?
I think each company is probably have their own challenges based on obviously their size, their scale. I think one thing that helps operating in a fully remote environment is also customer retention. So it's kind of a virtuous cycle, right? So you're remote, so you're able to retain people more if that's something that they value. And because you retain them more, it's easier to make working remote work. So I think the fact that you have employees lasting a long time with the company and really believing in the mission makes like remote work easier and more successful to do.
Mm. And if we move into sort of the regional and cultural nuances, like what do you think makes building fintech in the MENA region uniquely challenging as well? Because that's definitely where a lot of the investment and capital is being deployed here. It's continuing founders and investors coming into the region as well.
Yeah, here I think there's basically three areas that I would say make the region different than others and a bit more challenging, and they've evolved with time. So I think one is kind of the infrastructure and regulatory environment, especially when we talk to fintech. The second is kind of the access to talent. And the third is the way the region is kind of broken into different countries and markets to expand into. If I talk about the first one, especially when I first joined Sarwa, the infrastructure and regulatory environment was still underdeveloped. And when I'm talking about infrastructure, especially for fintech, I'm talking about open banking solution, banking for fintech companies, such as the use of virtual IBANs, tailored KYC solution, that kind of make operationally easier to implement and go live. We're still underdeveloped. The regulators were also a bit more early stage in kind of their maturity. But having said that, I think today things have changed quite a lot and there's a lot of innovation happening. If we think about open banking, there's a lot of players who've entered the space, and the especially in the UAE, the government has done a lot of effort into doing that. And I think right around the corner, there's going to be a big improvement. Tailored KYC solution, even the regulators have, the government have launched like UAE Pass to make things easier. Banking is improving, and the regulators have also matured a lot into helping startups innovate faster. And I think this is why the country also has become kind of a global hub as well to innovations and access to capital. The second one, access to talent, kind of also went into that positive direction. I think earlier on, there was less homegrown talent, like the tech ecosystem wasn't as evolved as probably the Europe and the US at the time. And attracting those people was a bit more challenging. Since then, I think, again, UAE has become much more attractive to global talent, and you're able to access a lot of people from Europe. And you've also started seeing homegrown talent in the UAE, which is very promising to see. On the third area, I think the regulatory landscape, I think that's still something that's a bit challenging to go and become quickly and easily a regional player across all of the countries. And expanding and having to deal with the different regulators into those different markets is still something that makes the region a bit challenging.
And what's your viewpoint on obviously the expansion into Saudi Arabia, which a lot of businesses are following suit now? A lot of them are setting up entities there as well, and that's going to be their sort of major play. Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, so I think when we went back to our time, we decided to kind of expand product-wise, and we grew our market by adding new products and really still focusing in the UAE. Well, Saudi is obviously a key market to expand in the future. Hopefully that's something we'll see soon.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about obviously a lot of the how the ecosystem has evolved and improved. Are there any other gaps, just from your perspective, that you think are still areas that can be better, or something new, a new play into the market that will help mobilize the sort of the fintech ecosystem even further?
I think there's still some work to be done on the infrastructure layers. I think there's a lot of players trying to do that when it comes to kind of banking for players and issuing and kind of powering the infrastructure so that players can start adding those products a bit easier and more seamlessly. It's grown a lot, but I think there's still areas there, especially for multi-country fintech platforms.
Yeah. And how does wealthtech here compare then to, let's just say, the US and the UK markets?
Again, I touched a bit on the infrastructure, so maybe I'll stay away from that. But I think the maturity of the customers when it comes to investing is obviously still more developed in those countries. Especially, I think if we take the US, the penetration of brokerage account into the population is at a different level than it is here in the region. So it becomes much more of a market share play between them and the existing players. While in the UAE and other countries in the region, there's still kind of a lot of people that you still need to get their entry into the wealth tech space and into the investing space. So there's still a lot of a market to grow there, and for the players that are here to push towards that growth.
Mm-hmm. And do you think the super app model is the wrong goal for fintech in this region?
I don't think there's a wrong or right goal when we talk about super app. I think it really depends. There's this kind of joke that goes and says that all fintech have the same end goal of being a digital bank, or like the super app that can offer all of those different products. But being a super app, I think, comes with its benefit and its challenges. And based on what your goal is and what you want to do, it can be either good or bad. I think being a super app, obviously leveraging your existing customer base to kind of cross-sell different products and making it all in one platform is definitely an advantage to kind of access a bigger customer base. But it also comes with its challenges, where sometimes it's a bit more complicated to create seamless user experience when you're trying to build a lot of products at the same time in one platform. There are sometimes synergies between the different products in one super app than another that can make this a bit beneficial to put them in one place, but also sometimes there's not as many synergies and it can create a bit more friction for the customers.
Yeah. And can you tell us about a product decision that didn't go as planned then? Like, what did you learn from it? What were the implications as well?
I wouldn't say it didn't go as planned, but probably that we didn't get the initial impact that we expected. So when we launched crypto, we expected a high adoption rate, but we launched crypto I believe it was in 2022, which was kind of a very bad time for the crypto market in general, right? So when we launched, the adoption wasn't to our expectations. And having the right product is also having the right product at the right time. Since then, we obviously saw that crypto again went into a very exciting time. So we saw a massive uplift when that happened. So what this necessarily impact kind of our strategy or our roadmap, but the fact that there was obviously at the time lower adoption probably didn't excite us as much to further invest resources and to expand our crypto offering, which since then obviously has always changed, and we're trying to look into how we can build on that further.
Yeah. And you became a CPO very young. Like, was there ever a moment you feel like an imposter? And what's like growth for you? You know, you've become a CPO very young. Is it in the future to become a CPO somewhere else in a bigger technology company? It'd be good to hear your kind of own sort of personal ambitions there as well.
Yeah, I think in today's world, between like all the different social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, you get a lot of beautification of what everyone's doing, you know, and everyone seems that they're doing everything perfect. So much content being shared on those platforms. And I think this, whoever you are, probably tends to create some level of insecurities in anyone to see those things. So I think that's very normal in today's world. But what I would say from my side personally, the more you start interacting with kind of those people, those product leaders or company leaders in the company, the more you start becoming comfortable, and you're saying that at the end of the day, everyone is a normal individual and kind of are trying to do their own thing, and that's how you become a bit more comfortable with that and try to hide a bit the noise that sometimes goes through those social media platforms. Personally, in terms of my growth, I would say obviously you can grow in many different ways. I think Sarwa still has a lot to grow, and hopefully growing with Sarwa as I grow would be what I would look forward to in the next few years.
And where do you take your own sort of learning from then? Like who do you learn from? Who do you aspire to? Do you read books? Like, how do you level up? How do you continue to level up as well and innovate?
I think one way to learn is by doing. The best way to learn is by doing different things, or learning from doing. That's obviously one way. I think another way is by learning from your peers, right? And one thing that you've been doing well in the region is kind of bringing this community of product leaders together, and having those discussions and those forums really helps you learn a lot from people that have done it directly. And the third is obviously any kind of content, that it be books, that it be online trainings that you can find that kind of help product leaders learn. I would say those are the three avenues to kind of keep on growing and learning.
Mm-hmm. Candid question. Do you feel like there's a bit of a resistance in the region when it comes to not just product leaders, engineering leaders, where, but I know from being in lots of different forums and communities in the UK, everyone's very open, very collaborative, and they don't mind saying that they don't know something, or they don't know how to do something, or they want to ask a question on how to build something within their organization. Whereas here, I just noticed a little bit of a resistance in being very open about those particular things, because it then people might look at that person and be like, well, aren't you the CPO or CTO of that company? Shouldn't you know how to do that? Do you feel like there is a bit of resistance, or?
I don't know. I think, so you mean internally within a company, or do you mean more kind of
more
like
on the community, like on the community side
level
that we spoke about and stuff?
I think the community initially, I think, was still a bit premature, and maybe the leaders also weren't as kind of mature as they currently are. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a lot of the work that you're doing, and kind of building a bit those bonds between the different product leaders that's kind of evolving. And I think it will take a bit of time before people are more comfortable maybe sharing their problems. Again, everyone wants to show that they know everything, that they are good at everything. But in close circles, I think people are a bit more open about it as you get to know some people better. Yeah,
I think it is all about breaking down barriers. And when it comes to building exceptional product teams, what are the things that you look for? What are some of the tools, the process, the structures, the things that you get right? Any advice that you could give to other product leaders as well?
I think when it comes to building a product team, one thing that is very valuable, I think we often value a lot someone having done something similar previously and in the past, and maybe we under evaluate kind of first principle capabilities and things like that. I would say finding the balance. Like, obviously someone who's done something in the past is still valuable if it's something similar, but really anchoring more on kind of first principle, someone that any problem that comes their way, they'll be able to resolve it, because every problem is different. Even the similar problem in different countries, the solution might look differently. So someone who can adapt to all of those sort of problems and find the right solution, and evaluating that into building your team.
And how do you assess for that then during like an interview? What are the things that you would look for to ensure that they are adaptable into those different situations?
I think one thing that I personally do is really a live case. So testing the interviewers' capabilities of understanding a problem quickly, coming up with potential solution in a time-restrained way, and a bit under a pressure environment, right? Interviews are normally some sort of pressure environment, and coming up with the right solution, being able to quickly bounce ideas, react to kind of a interaction between myself, I would say, is one way to do that.
And if you were advising a founder that's looking maybe for their first product hire as well, what's your viewpoint on that? What would you say that they need to kind of look for? Because I think some, you kind of touched on it there, it's like about the past experience. In our job, it's always the founder always wants to go for logos. What advice would you have for them?
I think it depends. Like, there's no right or wrong. Two people can do the same job, right? There's never just one person that's capable at doing a job right. And people who come with previous experience in those top companies also are very capable people, right? So I think what's important and indifferent of if they're coming from a top company or previous experience doing this is those first principle thinking and alignment with the mission and the vision of the company, right? So, I mean, if I were to think about myself, my journey with Sarwa started as an investor, as a customer. So I've obviously been passionate about the product that we're trying to build and the problem we're trying to solve. And I came with no product experience, right? Mostly consulting experience, and I learned doing it there. So I think, again, depending on the scale of your business, I think those are two things that you should always look for, which are first principles and kind of alignment with the ambition of the company. Then if they come from different backgrounds, some things can be beneficial or not.
And when it comes to the McKinsey element, what do you think that gave you or gives you that most product leaders might not have if they haven't had that experience?
Yeah, so again, I wouldn't say that they wouldn't have those experience. I think all product leaders are very capable people. But what I would say has taught me and helped me as a product leader, when you go normally in the normal path, you kind of start doing more execution, and then you grow into kind of more strategy. And starting my current consulting, it was a bit of the opposite. I started doing more strategy work and then went into execution and then product leadership. What consulting has helped me is kind of accelerate and help me see a lot of things and a lot of strategic thinking into solving kind of strategic and leadership problems, such as setting up the right initiatives to drive the right business objectives, such as thinking about the org structure and the operating model in the company to make sure that this cascades and drives your objective well. So having seen those things in a very short amount of time, then has helped me as a product leader kind of know how to think and address those problems.
Mm. What's your, I suppose, advice to the next generation of talent, the product leaders, the ones that are looking to progress from a head of product to a VP or to a CPO? There's a big illusion here in the region in particular that there's a lack of like clear progression frameworks, and it's sometimes not based on pure merit, or it's who you know. So I was wondering, like, from a clear structure process, and what are the gaps for people in order to progress within an organization?
That's a bit of a tricky question. I mean, I would say there's different paths that you can take. If I were to take my path, is you join a company early on and you showcase the value that you're able to bring, and it's a company that's a product-led company, and you showcase that, and then you grow with the company into those leadership roles as the company grows. For more mature companies, I think it really depends, and you need to understand how the product function is valued within this company, and what's the role, and what's kind of their vision of the ladder and the growth there that can be achieved, and making sure that they value product and the product function, and they have those internally. So it really depends on kind of the scale of the company you're joining and what you're trying to get to.
So these days I can't do a podcast without talking about AI. I think it's nearly illegal. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for AI in wealth tech when it comes to personalization, fraud detection, education? Interestingly, a lot of the founders that I speak to in the region, they all, if they're exploring new things, it's all sitting in that intersection between AI and wealth tech for some reason. So it'd be good to get your take.
So I think if we talk about AI, I'd split it into two. One is kind of use cases for the customer, and one is kind of use cases more operationally and internally. If I talk about use cases for the customer when it comes to wealth tech, I think there's a lot of things that are being done around kind of alerts, market sentiment, being able to do research through leveraging the AI tools to understand, okay, what are possibly good companies to invest in. And that's one area that's being explored when it comes to AI and wealth tech.
And how could you trust that, though, at the same time, if you were using that as take myself and I wanted to research on some top companies to invest, that's going to scrape everything. How do I trust that data, do you think?
I think at the end of the day, it's similar to the web in general, right? So you need to make sure that you ask the right prompt. You can ask for the sources if you want to quality check where those data are coming from to make sure that the sources are valuable. Similar to how when you navigate the internet, you should also still kind of check the quality of those data and the sources from where you're reading. You should kind of do the same when it comes to AI. Or if you're using a tool that's already been vetted to have done all of those quality control checks and so on, then as trust builds, you can start trusting a bit this data and this information you're getting more.
And do you think it will move into like all the talks around like AI in your pocket? So you use a particular wealth management platform or something new comes along and it picks up your trends, your patterns, where you like to invest or whatever, and you'll get those notifications straight away and it'll all be seamless. You'll like press a button and it'll do it all for you. Do you think that's where it is going?
I think the personalization can come towards the recommendation. As you mentioned, understanding what kind of customers they are, what do they like to invest in, coming up with recommendation. But are you going to automate this final decision making? There's obviously platforms that do that and then invest it for you based on maybe your risk profile. And this goes to the personalization of the portfolio, that's the creation. But then it can, as you said, create some sort of alert and provide with you information. I think this is something that's been done even before AI, right? Mm-hmm. You already have some alert system that showcases price movements of certain stocks that you put in your watches and that you want to monitor when it goes below a certain price point. There's also kind of featured lists that you can see people who also own similar stocks, right? If you own, let's say, Apple, what are stocks that also people who own Apple own? So there's already been things that have been done without the use of AI. I think AI can just help to push it to kind of a next level of personalization and user experience.
And how about fraud detection and security, and how does that all fit into this acceleration of AI, and especially within wealth management?
Yeah, I think that this is the second point, which comes to internal operation. I think AI can help you kind of reduce your costs of operation through better KYC, fraud detection platforms, and everyone building upon those AI tools to make sure that they're there. Also, obviously, customer support and even product development and tech development. AI has helped engineers increase their efficiencies. So I think AI will help ensure that you can do more, basically, with a bit with less, to some extent.
Yeah. And what fintech product doesn't exist yet in the region, but should, from your perspective?
I think that goes to one of the pain points I mentioned. When it comes to fintech, one thing would be a company that helps you grow regionally and makes the operational and regulatory aspect very simple. And when I'm talking operation, I'm talking kind of collections of funds, transfer between funds, instantly between different geographies, FX, and powers kind of this infrastructure for players to expand regionally easier.
So that would be your business today, would it be? In fact, if you were going to launch a fintech startup today, and that would be the problem that you solve first?
It could be one of the problems, yes. Obviously, I think, I think that's a needed problem in the region.
And what would you say the biggest threats maybe to your kind of the marketplace and the customers that you're serving at the moment for Sarwa? Like, what do you think? Is it competition? Is it expansion into new markets? What are the biggest threats to you?
I think when it comes to threats, there's always been competition. Competition is not new. I think there's players which are there There's legacy players which have been there for some time as well, and everyone is trying to expand. I would say there's also still, as I mentioned, a market where there's potential to create a bigger market, right? So there's a bigger pool of people to start attracting. I would say when it comes to threat, I don't see any direct threat. I see more opportunities that you need to capture and making sure you can expand regionally and try to serve this customers who are still unserved.
Yeah, and as a from your perspective, as a business, how do you actually measure success then from a data and metrics point? Is it user adoption? Is it revenue, the profitability? And how, as a product leader, do you sit at that intersection? Because there's a lot of talk for a long time that CPOs are just so inverted at thinking about the product and customer, but they don't think about how the business actually makes money and profitability. So where do you sit with that?
Yeah, so obviously my background in consulting, I'm a very business-oriented product leader, I would say, personally. And I think it really depends on what you're trying to drive, right? And I mentioned those different phases during Sarwa, and what are the things that you're trying to push. I mean, some of the North Star metrics you always need to look at are kind of revenues, user growth, for us, assets under custody growth, and engagement, right? How much people trade. If you go into more detailed metrics, important to look at retention metrics, obviously, customer satisfaction, and all of those. And based on what you're trying to really push and drive for the year or the quarter, you need to make sure that what you're building goes towards that. So at some point, you want to drive monetization more. So you look a bit more at revenues and how much you're able to create new revenue streams. When you're trying to look a bit more at growth, you look a bit more at, okay, customer acquisition, how does your funnel look like, how much people you're able to get on your top funnel, and what are the loops you're able to create. So you always need to look at all metrics overall as a business and focus on the ones you want to drive the most based on the teams.
Mm-hmm. I just want to finish up on some team management, personal side of things before we move to the quick fire questions. But when it comes to your own management style and getting the best out of your team, what would you say are your top traits? What are the things that you put in place as well to help grow somebody's career, measure success, so that we can help the other kind of product leaders that might be at that point as well in building and leading a team?
I think personally, I'm a big fan of open feedback. So doing regular feedbacks with your team. So I have a monthly feedback with everyone on my team, and also creating a framework to give constructive feedback. So making sure when you evaluate a product person that you have clear criteria that you're able to evaluate them on and give feedback that helps them build those competencies as a product leader that are needed. Let it be product execution that can be broken down. Let it be product strategy. Let it be stakeholder management, managing the different stakeholder, and making sure you have this, that you can give constant feedback. And being very clear with the requirements and the expectation you have from some person to grow in their career. I think having this open discussions with your team members around, okay, if you want to grow, those are kind of the frameworks you're being assessed on. And this is what I want to see from you for you to start doing the next step and the next milestone. So that's kind of where I go in terms of team management, making sure that the team members feel heard and they have a clear path toward their growth.
And how about when it comes to working with your engineering peer or an engineering leader? What's the best way to get the best out of each other and for the wider business context as well?
I think we have a great relationship with engineers. I think if you have, as a product person, as an engineer, they're two legs of the same stool, right? It's very important to be very close to your engineers and also have open conversation. I think for the engineers to understand why you're doing those product things and why this is important for the business and you need to do those things is very important. And for the product people to know from the engineering side why sometimes you need to do some engineering work and some core work is also very important. So having this open conversation where both parties listen to the other and really understand what is most important for the business overall to kind of build and prioritize what's needed is very important. And having this close relationship is key.
And a lot of companies in the MENA ecosystem talk a lot about being a product-led organization, but they're actually not. They're very far behind in the way that they kind of work and operate. What's your kind of viewpoint on that? And if you were to join a new organization, how would you assess that as well? Especially with the reason why I asked that, a lot of product leaders are coming into the region and they're making mistakes joining the wrong organization because maybe they haven't done that due diligence assessment, or they just don't have enough knowledge of the market here as well. How would you kind of assess that?
No, that's a good question. I think understanding what are the responsibilities of a product function in an organization is important to know if it's product led. So who's in charge of helping building the strategy overall, right? Is it a very product strategy anchored, and is that sitting with the product team, or is that sitting with kind of other functional departments? Does the product function have also business objective metrics that they're in charge of, right? Are they accountable to driving those things? And where is the allocation of resource being spent, right? What's the team of the engineers of the product, the design, and so on? So I think those are kind of things that you can see to evaluate what is the responsibility of the product function within an organization, and understanding if it's a product-led organization or basically product just acts a bit as a executional function and project management role.
And how about the same sort of similar question, but when so a lot of early stage founders are still an early ecosystem as well, and they seem to make a hire quite early and call it a CPO or a VP of product, but in reality it isn't as well. How would you make sure that you were joining the right organization, the right startup that's going to give you that autonomy and empowerment and is generally a CPO role? And do you think do you also think there's a lot of founders here that maybe don't even actually know what a CPO does still and the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to address the two parts of the question. I think the first part of the question, it's also knowing about the expectation that you are when you're coming as a VP of product or as a head of product, right? Based on the maturity of the company. It's also not realistic to think when you're joining an early stage startup that has maybe a small team that you're a VP of product means that you're going to spend your time doing product strategy and doing that, right? At the end of the day, a lot of the work that brings value to the company as the product leader is making sure that you're able to execute building the right products in an efficient way with the right customer experience. So I think knowing that as well and having the right mindset when you're joining a company is important to not come and expect, okay, I'm a product leader, so I'm going to just be doing product strategy. So I would say that's kind of one thing that you need to know. And what's, again, the level of autonomy that you're expected. I think when you're joining a startup that's founder-led, the founders are always going to be very involved in the product. Even once you become CPOs, like the product are still very involved. It's partly their baby, right? They help build this company. So you need to kind of showcase a track record of trust where the CEO then can trust you to build the product strategy and the product vision with him, right? At the end of the day, even as a CPO, it doesn't mean that you're doing this in isolation. You need to do this with all of the leaders of the company, especially the founders, the CEO, the CTO, and all other leaders that are there. So I think it's earned through time and through the relationship with the different founders. On the second part, like do some CEOs don't know what to expect out of their CPOs? Again, I think similarly, they're still very involved in product, but they need to also collaborate and understand that those CPOs and those set of products that they're coming are there to help them make the right product decision and the right product vision.
I agree. A lot of the conversations that we have with founders, it's very driven by a job spec, and we really like to reverse engineer that so that they understand like what you need versus what you want and the difference between that, and really kind of breaking that down into like a mission of a role and an OKRs over a 6-month period. And once you kind of reverse all that, you actually get to the true outcome of what they actually need for the business. And I think that's where they go wrong quite a lot when hiring executives in the region, from my understanding so far.
And I think it's important also to be transparent up front when you're hiring someone at what your expectations are from this person, right? If you're a founder who's hiring your head of product and you know you're still very involved in the product decision, I think being clear about that's how things are. It's important to be from the get-go. Like the mismatch between expectation and reality is important.
Yeah, I agree. So just finishing up on some quick fire questions then. A fintech product you admire outside of Sarwa?
Yeah, so I would say Robinhood there. I think credit is due to pioneers, and Robinhood has definitely been a pioneer in making investing accessible to everyone. And they've changed the business model of the brokerage industry, and they've made investing simple. So I think that's one company.
One thing most CPOs get wrong?
I touched a bit upon that when I talked about hiring, just valuing more previous experience and not putting as much emphasis on like first principle mindset.
Biggest myth in building fintech products?
The trust is built only through brand. Trust is built through the whole company when it comes to the product, the customer support, and all interactions between a customer and the business. And sometimes like marketing is also super important into creating those stories, sharing the awareness, and making sure that the business is being displayed through the markets you're trying to attain. But sometimes the company that spend the most on brand are not the most trustworthy, because when you're spending so much, you can go here in the UAE and you can see all of those CFDs, investment platforms that are spending so much money on the biggest billboards ever. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most trustworthy.
I mean, it's always hard to measure marketing and so forth around ROI, right? You can't always get it right. In 3 words, the future of investing in the Middle East is?
Done with Sarwa.
Boldest prediction for the region by 2030?
You can pay your coffee using crypto.
Amazing. Robin, thank you for joining Breaking Down Barriers. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.